talked to a lot of people around here, and what they're saying, the content of his criticism, not a surprise. The emotion, being willing to put it out there publicly and be so emotional in this book, that's what's taken people by surprise. I don't think people expected that from him at this point. It's not the Bob Gates that we saw publicly for so long. So that may be part of it. An act of betrayal or an act of emotion. If he was so seething and so angry during all those years, why did he stay? That may be the question a lot of people want to ask him.
That emotional part, you touched on something very strong, because on something that he actually just released today in the Wall Street Journal, he talks about how some of the times when he was before congressional hearings, he was so angry at the partisanship and the myopathy, and just the myopathy of the congressmen who were asking questions that just served their purposes and perhaps not the country's purposes. He said, I may be the Secretary of Defense, but I'm also an American citizen, and there's no, I have to say, SOB, he says it full on. There's no SOB in the world who can talk to me like that. I quit. Find someone else. That's what he says he felt like saying and doing, folding up his briefing book and walking out of those hearings. Did anyone ever get the sense that he actually felt that way? Did he ever actually belie those emotions?
Well, certainly not to the press corps or publicly. But I think, look, every Secretary of Defense, every one of them that I've covered and all the people at CNN have covered, they get exhausted, they get tired, they get emotional, they get frustrated and upset with the Washington bureaucracy. I think everybody thinks about throwing their hands up in the air and walking out the door. How close was Bob Gates to doing it? And perhaps the real question is, if he was so upset, again, not just why didn't he go through with it and resign, but if he was so upset and he stayed, can he assure people that he was giving President Obama his best dispassionate advice as Secretary of Defense? Could he do both those things? Could he be upset and still be effective? The one thing that there is no question about Bob Gates is his emotions were tied to the troops. He was very publicly emotional in Afghanistan, when he visited Iraq, when he talked to troops, when he saw wounded troops at Walter Reed.
That's not unusual. That's not unusual. I mean, I don't think I've ever seen a SecDef not emotional when they talk about troops, or certainly entirely allied with troops, it feels as though. But what was surprising, perhaps, and enlighten me, Barbara, a sitting president. Memoirs are memoirs, but they don't usually target your boss as he's still in the office.
They don't. You have to, I suppose, decide in your own mind when you do these things. You serve a commander-in-chief, you serve a sitting commander-in-chief. How comfortable is he with what he did? There are sources that have told CNN, people that know Bob Gates very well, that he's very comfortable with it, that he is essentially a historian, and that he wanted to tell his version of events while they were still current and relevant.